Welcome. It's been an evening to this point for sure, but let's call this meeting to order at 7:44 p.m.
Mr. Sandoval, can I do roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Here.
Mr. Sandoval?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Seja Martinez?
Here.
Mrs. Underhill?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that, Kim. Moving on to Section 2.1, Moment of Silence and Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Underhill, do you mind leading us in the pledge this evening? And before you do, if you so accept the call, I do want to really honor one of our own who we lost last month. She was from Pioneer, and she passed, I believe, at the end of April. So I want to keep her family in our thoughts. And as we go through this, please keep Ms. Seja Martinez's family in your thoughts as well. So, Ms. Underhill, we'll recognize a moment of silence, and then you go ahead and begin and lead us in the pledge when you're comfortable. Okay?
Great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to Section 3.1, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. Ms. Doan?
Let's see here. Well, I think I'm okay with it.
Okay. Ms. Underhill?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Pingarelli?
I'm good.
And Ms. Seja Martinez?
I was going to ask to move the bond and override commit line item before the budget, but as a result of tonight's reschedule, I'm going to wait on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I'm good as well. All right. So moving on to 4.1, recognitions. Ms. Doan?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly thank and congratulate Coyote Hills and all the schools that are really working on doing their promotions and, kind of alternative celebrations. Coyote Hills had the first promotion for 8th graders last week on Friday, and it was just really cool. They had loud music and a DJ playing, and they had all the teachers out there with signs, and the families, came through and got to take pictures, and the kids were dressed up, and it was just really neat and, heartfelt, and I know bittersweet for a lot of those teachers, but they did a great job kind of trailblazing and showing how that can be done, and I know there were other schools there to kind of see how they did it, so just congratulations to all those schools and appreciate being a part of that. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Ms. Pingarelli?
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Ms. Seja Martinez?
Just two quick things. We've had in the past couple weeks quite a few weeks of celebration for Teacher Appreciation Week, principal acknowledgement, nurse, and volunteers. Normally, we have time and dedicated a whole ceremony for a lot of these events, and so I want to share, I do miss them in person, but I am thinking about them. I've also had the opportunity to meet via Teams with and that they continue to motivate me and inspire me to more. So thank you for everybody within our district and all our volunteers as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, for me, it's very much in line with what Ms. Sam Martinez just stated, and Ms. Underhill. It's it is when you follow social media across all of our sites and see the creativity that's going on to honor, acknowledge, our students, those who are promoting, those who are graduating, and just some of the really cool ideas that are taking place, to make, kind of our new normal right now anyway, something that's still, doing our best to be as engaging as we possibly can, but being very creative in the spirit of student success and education. So thank you to all our teachers, staff, again, admin, site admin, and certainly our district leadership. So really appreciating it. Again, it's an honor to serve each and every one of you. That said, moving on to 4.3, superintendent comments. Superintendent Ms. Pallas Thompson.
Good evening, Mr. Sandoval. This has been a very nice long evening. It's been a very interesting long 9 weeks, if you will. I have really nothing to share other than by the time we finish in 2 weeks, it'll be 11 weeks, and then we'll have 10 weeks till we plan on reopening. And I believe that we are in a place to have learned from the last 9.5 weeks, and that we're going to be in a really positive direction. I want to thank the committee that kept us from starting actually on time, our Citizens Advisory. They did an amazing job working through issues, and they're not willing to just put something together so that we could get it on the agenda tonight. So to everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for working fast, but thank you for working smart. So that's all I have to say this evening, so you can move on to your agenda, Mr. Sandoval. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Pallas Thompson. Well said. And yes, agreed. That committee is very mindful of how important their discussions are to the district as a whole. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.1, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included in the agenda. So public comment. Ms. Contra, I believe we do not have any public comment this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, President Sandoval, that is correct. We have no public comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on to the consent agenda. Does any board members have an item that they would like to pull? I will start with Ms. Stone.
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Underhill.
I just want to pull item 6.6.
Okay, I'll second that. Ms. Pingarelli?
No, I'm good, David.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sam Martinez?
I am good.
Okay, perfect. All right, very good. All right. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6.6, first things first, grant renewal for Peoria Unified School District Family Resource Centers for the 2020-2021 school year.
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus item 6.6.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Doan and a second by Ms. Underhill. Kim, do you want to still go through a voice vote?
Yes, sir, please, for the record. Mrs. Pingarelli?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mrs. Dunn?
Aye.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
Aye.
Mrs. Underhill?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. 5-0. Moving on to, is line item change, Ms. Contrish, or can I reference 6.6?
You should be able to.
Okay. Moving on to 7.1. First things first, grant renewal. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just wanted to pull this because I just feel like it is such a significant resource for our community, and I just wanted to highlight the support that we get from First Things First for our family resource centers. You know, they do so much to prepare the young children in our communities, and they're really kind of the first introduction for a lot of our new parents to our district, and they just do such a great job preparing our kids to be ready for kindergarten, that along with our preschool. And, you know, I just want to kind of point that out because we have kind of started calling ourselves a pre-K through 12 district, which I think is absolutely critical with all the research on early childhood. And it's kind of brought to my mind that as we start looking at, you know, our facilities assessment and capacity needs, et cetera, that we really want to make sure that we consider the services that are provided by our pre-K department. You know, currently 2/3 of the children in our pre-K program are on IEP, so they have special needs. And we just want to make sure that we consider that and the space that we provide for those children that are in district children or in our district and those families as we move forward, because it is a really critical service. And you can ask any kindergarten teacher and they would agree, but just wanted to point that out and thank First Things First for their support. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, no, agreed. Thank you for that. Any other comment on 7.1?
Ms. Underhill, or President Sandoval, I appreciate
Yes.
Ms. Underhill bringing this to the public's attention and the partnership with the Peoria School District as well with the preschool and how we can continue to foster that is so important as we look forward. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. All right, I need a motion to approve 7.1.
I move that we approve 7.1.
I second.
Ms. Contra, do you want to lead us in a voice vote?
Yes, sir. Please cast your vote when I call your name. Mrs. Pingarelli,
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval,
Aye.
Mrs. Stone,
Aye.
Mrs. Seja Martinez,
Aye.
Mrs. Underhill,
Aye.
thank you very much. 7.1, motion to approve First Things First grant renewal passes 5-0.
Perfect. Thank you, governing board members. Moving on to 8.1, consideration of administrative appointments. Can I get a motion to approve 8.1, please?
I move that we approve 8.1 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Ms. Stone and a second by Ms. Pingarelli. Ms. Contra, do you want to lead us in a voice vote?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mrs. Pingarelli,
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval,
Aye.
Mrs. Stone,
Aye.
Mrs. Seja Martinez,
Aye.
Mrs. Underhill.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2, COVID-19 updates. Dr. Reynolds?
Actually, President Sandoval,
Yo.
I believe Dr. Davidson might want to address the positions that you just approved.
Of course he does. I totally spaced that. Dr. Davidson, I apologize.
President Sandoval, members of the board, and Ms. Powles Thompson, as well as guests, I certainly accept your apology there, and just thought maybe we were just really rocking and rolling on behalf of time. So, but I appreciate the vote of confidence there, and I would just like to highlight the two employees that our team is bringing for recommendation tonight. The first one is that we have now recommended Mr. Jacob Holliday to be appointed to the position of Assistant Principal Athletic Director of Peoria High School for the 2020-2021 school year. Mr. Holliday currently serves as Monument Valley High School in the Cayenta Unified School District and has been in his role since 2008. Mr. Holliday has also served as a physical education teacher starting in 2005. Mr. Holliday has a bachelor's degree in secondary education from Brigham Young University and a master's degree from Arizona State University in educational leadership. We want to congratulate Jacob and welcome him to the Peoria Unified School District. Also to note, Mr. Holliday's wife is an educator in the English language arts, and we hope to also bring her to be part of our staff. Our second recommendation tonight is Mrs. Heather Ingebretson to be appointed to the position of Assistant Director for Special Education for the 2021 school year. Mrs. Ingebretson currently serves as Director of Special Education for a large charter school district in the Valley, and she also serves as the Special Education Director of a private day school in Goodyear. Mrs. Ingebretson has served in the roles of Special Education, Specialized Program Teacher, Resource Teacher, and Exceptional Student Services Coordinator in both public and charter schools. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Arizona, a master's degree in educational psychology, and is just weeks away from earning her doctorate degree in advanced educational administration. Heather is very passionate about students, and we are excited to welcome Heather as well to the Peoria Unified School District. Congratulations. Thank you, President Sandoval and members of the board.
Dr. Davidson, thank you, sir, and you and your team just to continue to do a fantastic job and certainly vetting out and, finding, high caliber individuals to continue, the promise of public schools within PUSD. So thank you for that.
Mr. Sandoval, with that said, please note, I would like to, on behalf of the many applicants we've had to bring forward electronically, when we do get all back together, I'd love to bring everybody in front of the group just so you can have that face-to-face name recognition. Okay?
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you. Board members, comments, Ms. Stone?
Well, I would just like to welcome our new members to the community. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for that. Ms. Underhill?
Yes, I would echo that. Welcome to Peoria. We're so glad that you are coming to us with your wealth of experience, and we look forward to meeting you.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Same. Welcome to the district, and it'll be nice to get a face to the name. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sam Martinez?
Thank you so much for choosing Peoria Unified. When you consider anywhere you can go, it is an honor just as much that you chose us as well. So welcome to the family.
Yeah, agreed. And Mr. Holliday, Ms. Ingebretson, I believe. Yes, welcome, and we're looking forward to working with you and seeing all the great things you're going to do in our district and in the spirit of student success. So welcome aboard. All right, Dr. Davidson, thank you again. Moving on to 8.2, COVID-19 updates. Dr. Reynolds.
Yes, thank you, President Sandoval, and good evening, Governing Board, Ms. Pals Thompson, Cabinet, and our guests online. If anyone in the audience has missed our past two school closure COVID-19 updates, I really would encourage you to go back and listen to those presentations, because the work that our staff, students, parents, and community are doing is truly extraordinary. Just to highlight again, our food service department, who is well over 500,000 meals served. It is something to celebrate, and would really encourage everyone to look at those presentations. Tonight, I simply want to update you on graduation. Our planning task force that has been working hard over the last few weeks in our collaboration with the city of Peoria. Since our last meeting, we have announced to our community our new State Farm Stadium graduation dates of June 26th, 27th. I'm sure that everyone is aware that we don't know if we're going to be able or permitted to host a large ceremony like graduation, but we are resolute. We are not giving up hope, and so we continue to plan and move forward. Whether that means a ceremony of just graduates only, graduates and some limited guests, or a scenario where all are welcome, but we are certainly hoping for the best. Also, it's important to note that each of our high schools are hosting events to celebrate the class of 2020. get them their diplomas, their caps and gowns, and honor each graduate for his or her hard work, as well as our 8th graders who are promoting our elementary schools are doing completing many ceremonies to honor them as well. Our not on my watch 3, Mrs. Pallas Thompson, our superintendent, her task force to prepare us for the 2021 school year has been meeting regularly, along with all of their subcommittees who are focused on essentially 3 areas for bringing us back in the 2021 school year. First of all, coming back in a somewhat normal situation where we have some social distancing parameters. The second scenario might be coming back in a blended model with students coming to school in small groups and learning in a face-to-face as well as an online. And then, of course, a similar scenario to what we're dealing with now. So this group is doing extraordinary work. They're working very hard, and they are exploring all kinds of scenarios and variables that would impact how we come back in the fall. And we're really proud of the work, and we'll be bringing that forward at a future date. And of course, you know, there could be a scenario where we mix all 3 of these scenarios. We have that you should know based on not only your feedback as a governing board, but feedback we've received from our various stakeholder groups, that we have teachers, student, staff, and parent surveys that will be going out next week seeking feedback on what we are doing well, where we can improve, and what needs continue within our community. So we will be providing that feedback to the task force as well as the subcommittees so that they will be able to continue to work hard to prepare no matter what the circumstances we're facing in the fall. We're also working very closely with the city of Peoria, first to identify if we can safely provide summer programming, and if we can, what that might look like. Teams from both the city and Peoria Unified are collaborating to find solutions so that we can communicate with our community and they know what to expect as far as summer programming. It is also important that our community know that Peoria School District and our site facilities will remain closed through May. We have asked our departments and our schools, as we continue to monitor, to put together plans to begin to safely and appropriately open our offices. And when we have those plans, we will obviously communicate those to our communities. We are continuing to observe CDC recommendations. We're working with our state leaders and health officials so that we do what's in the very best interest for our students, our parents, our staff, and our community. And so I encourage everyone to stay tuned, be tuning in to and checking into our online presence, our frequently asked questions. That is where we will be able to answer some of those questions, and we'll continue to update the board as well as our entire community on how we are managing this situation. So thank you for your time. Again, our entire team stands ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for that. Ms. Doan?
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for that update.
Ms. Stone, I believe you're on mute.
I did take it off. Can you hear me now?
You did. Yes, we can hear you now.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Reynolds for that good update.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Ms. Underhill.
Yes, I would agree. Thank you for the update, and I'm really glad to hear that the task force is considering different scenarios. I'm just curious, and we probably don't even know yet, but do you get will there be a statewide direction as far as the opening of schools, or, what are you hearing as far as that goes, or is it going to be like different places doing different things. So I'm just trying to get an idea of, kind of the breadth of the state's directive in this whole situation.
Thank you for that question, Mrs. Underhill. That is the $1 million, or maybe even more than $1 million question. We've been, we're in close communication with the Arizona Department of Education, as well as Governor Ducey's office, and they have been forthcoming in communicating and making sure that we know what those expectations are. I believe that the expectation is that we will receive some statewide guidance from all of those groups, the CDC, our Maricopa County Health, as well as the Arizona Department of Education, led by Governor Ducey's office. And I believe that, we will get some direction. That doesn't mean that we won't need to make some decisions locally. As the Peoria School District, but we look forward to that guidance, and we will bring any updates to you as they come up.
That's great, and I'm assuming we're also in contact with our local district partners as well.
And when you say local district partners, are you referring to some of our peer districts?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I am on calls weekly and are briefing Mrs. Pallas Thompson each time we have those calls.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingrelli?
Thank you for the update. No questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Sarah Martinez?
Thank you, President Sandoval. I appreciate the update, Dr. Reynolds. There are a couple of things top of mind, and I have had the opportunity to speak to some school sites, administrators, teachers, and I know we received an email recently. So I'm first going to start off with alleviating some of the questions around staffing model. I know that we have had some big wins in retention rates. Do you mind, even though we are in the midst of a global pandemic, what are those results on our retention rate and how that impacts our school district?
And you are referring to the retention that we have with our teachers and administrators and staff?
That's correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Davidson can probably address it a little more clearly, but we have, as we stated in our I believe our update in our last meeting, yes, we've had some great results in attracting, but we are also doing well in retaining our staff, and that there's a lot of factors that go into that. First and foremost, that Peoria Schools is one of the. I'm not going to say one of the. It is the best place to be and to work. But Dr. Davidson, would you like to address any of the retention statistics that you may have at your disposal?
I'm with you here, Dr. Reynolds. Thank you. And governing board members, you most recently received an email from us that highlighted the work on behalf of our classified and support team members. We broke that down by exempt and non-exempt employees. And wow, I was very excited about that retention rate. In the high 90s, I believe it was 97% that we had reported as an overall group. What that means to me is, as Dr. Reynolds was speaking, is that our employees are excited to be with us, to do the work that we're doing now, but also I think the work that's going to be in front of them. We do know that our workplace is ever changing, ever adapting. And I've, from many conversations, Ms. Sarah Martinez, similar that you've had, I think people are willing to be flexible and are excited about our future. As we move into opening of schools and whenever that may happen, or honestly, as we look at what those models may be, we might have to talk more about staffing and what those staffing patterns are and how we manage that to ensure, I think, both safety of students and safety of our employees. So there may be conversations in the future, but in terms of where our staff is now, our team is now, we're very excited about our future and the employees that are choosing to remain with us here in Peoria.
And Mrs. Ceja Martinez, if you don't mind, I would like to add to that as well. There are many of us at the district office who are and have been over the last several weeks making phone calls to teachers and staff and just checking in with them and getting their feedback on what we're doing well and where we can improve and just how they're doing. And the response has been, it's overwhelming. It is one of the highlights, as I've shared with many of you, the highlights of my day is checking in with them and the appreciation for the level of support, not only from the governing board, but from all the support staff in dealing with this pandemic. So it has been it's been heartwarming and at times even a little overwhelming to hear how supportive they've been of what we're working on.
Thank you for that update, gentlemen. And though I don't speak on behalf of the governing board, but I appreciate the specific feed forward on how we can do a better job to help them feel like we are in this together. And it's easier said than done. And it really takes that vulnerability on both ends to recognize that this is a challenging environment. So I appreciate the initiative on our HR team and acknowledge that the challenge to recruit and retain is that much harder. But in addition to that is making sure that we are human first. So thank you for those updates. I will share Dr. David's and some of the concerns as I speak to our staff is spearheading the rumors and what is the point or the space where our staff have, whether it be technology or email or even the phone conversations, the best place where staff feel comfortable to combat rumors. Because one of the biggest rumors that I've heard in a trend is, what's going to happen with my contract if we don't start in August? So how are we working through some of those rumors? And that's one specific example, but I'm sure there are many others.
President Sandoval and Mrs. Ceja Martinez, thank you for that question. Certainly, and you all know this, any employee can send a question my way to help offset any rumor, and I'll gladly respond and give them the information they need. In terms of this crisis, as I would call it, as many people call it, we work very closely with our public relations team to update employees through our typical channels, but we do have updates just happening all the time in our employee FAQs right there on our employee portal. If it's something very specific about the future, Ms. Ceja Martinez, like the one you mentioned, it is difficult to squash a rumor because I think there are very, very many unknown factors right now. And so with the numerous variables that play into that one question you may reference to, I don't know if I would have a good response yet. Other than what I do know is we would utilize governing board policy and the language within the contracts to ensure that our employees are aware of what's happening, but also from a human resources perspective, I would certainly need to communicate that out in a timely fashion and provide that support that's needed. So I hope that answers your question, but certainly our employees know that human resources has an open door at any time, but in this particular scenario, I would direct our employees back to the FAQs as they get updated regularly.
Excellent. Thank you for that great line of support and just realizing that whatever your title is, that we're here to leverage the resources and point them in the right direction. So I appreciate that. Another top concern that I get are parents. I know we are getting to the year end, a few days left of grades. And it's not that there's any additional insight, Dr. Reynolds and Miss Linda Pellis-Thompson, you and I have talked for hours on end because parents do and are concerned about their grades. I recognize as a parent of an elementary student and a high schooler that grades are important and we want to help you. So the only ask or call the public and administrators and staff as we think through a parent who's calling about grades, that hear them out in any way that we can help them. We do our best to leverage the tools and resources that we have, because those students are feeling the impact as well. And I just want to share that because I know I'm getting calls or emails about them as in relation to grades as we round up the year. The last thing I want to add is in regards to, and Dr. Reynolds, you already had mentioned it, is the game plan for our re-engagement, I guess you can call it, in the new school year. I know that the task force is asking for or working through options. My ask as a governing board member is also to consider the state's alignment. I do not want anything to impact our funding measures. And so when we consider the options, consider the state and how they proceed, as well as asking parents for specific feedback. And I believe you alluded to in your explanation as a start, stop, and continue. What are we doing well? What do we need to continue? And what is something definitely we need to take off the table? So thank you for that. I just want to re-highlight, fall in line with the state so that we don't jeopardize any funding. And for that, I am done.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah Martinez. And I think the first item that you mentioned in and around our retention rates, our employer associated retention rate in the district, and the question was, I believe, what we as a board can do to help continue along that trajectory, right? I think for me, we've done a lot of really good things as a team. And when I say team, not just us as board members, but also the 4,000 plus associates throughout our district, to really create these positive, trusting cultures, environments throughout the district. I think we still have opportunities without question, but I believe we're moving in the right direction with regards to just creating environments where all of our associates can work at their best selves, right? And really having a strong focus on inclusivity and and being okay with courageous conversations. Those are always productive. And going into those conversations with a solutions-oriented mindset. I think all of that stuff that we've really grown as a board and have continued to do, is definitely influencing again a working environment that's safe and supportive. So thank each and every one of you for that. So with that said, Dr. Reynolds, I have a couple questions for you. You did mention the different scenarios, and my only question there is, we have a few that are out there, and what variables would actually mobilize a particular scenario, right? And I know, CDC, of course, WHO, state, obviously those are the obvious ones, right? And you might have mentioned it when you were in your report out, but I just want to make sure that, yes, we follow those guidelines, but, how we localize those, right? And how we, go above and beyond kind of, what we're, I'm going to say, obligated to do from a CDC and WHO and state perspective, to really just ensure that our district as a whole, is in a very safe environment, as we get back to, school in the fall. So I guess my really overall question is, what are some of the other variables that would launch one of these scenarios, whether it's one or a few?
Well, again, thank you for that, President Sandoval. We're very fortunate that we are not in this alone. And so as our state, as you mentioned, our governor, as well as our Department of Education provide us guidance, that is really the key factor in what will move us towards one of those scenarios. If we're not permitted to bring large, at that point in time, if we're not permitted to bring large groups of people together in one area, or we have specific numbers, then that would drive us towards one of those scenarios where we might move to a blended, or we're bringing smaller groups of students to schools at different times. So we'll really rely on the health professionals as well as our state leaders to drive us that way. Where I think as a local organization, we've got to continue to focus our attention, and that is, regardless of what those scenarios are, how do we ensure that our students and our staff, our parents, our community are safe when they come to our facilities? And so we, Mr. Duguid and his team, along with his co-chair and that, Mr. Schuff, are working through many scenarios. The challenge that we face, as you can imagine, is that each thing that we consider costs money, and it is a unique situation that we find ourselves in trying to budget to ensure, if we're talking about hand sanitizers, if we're talking about glass in front of our employees, in front offices, and those kinds of things. Those are all things that none of our school districts had budgeted for. And so we're working through a variety of scenarios to try to ensure that we provide the safest environment for all of our students. Ideally, we're going to bring everyone back and we get to a sense of normality. But we're many months away from, we're several months away from knowing what that looks like. So we will be relying on state guidance as well as our local plan to ensure that our staff and students are safe.
Got it. No, thank you for that. Last question is just in and around. You talked about summer programming and working with the city of Peoria. When you refer to programming, what are some of the details within programming, right? And here's where I'm headed. I think it was a couple meetings ago, I brought up, the summertime, and I brought up, the economic impact that, COVID's having on our families, right? And I think we're going to have a greater need over the summer to continue really, servicing our students and families.
You're absolutely right, and Miss Airy, as well as a variety of different departments and teams are involved in this. And it with summer programming, it really comes down to opportunities for students to engage in a variety of different activities throughout the summer. And so where we are working right now is, what might that look like as we start to open back up? When you talk about food service, our food service opportunities in the summer look a bit different than what we're able to provide during the school year, but our food service team is on it and will continue to provide those opportunities as they fall underneath our federal programming and dollars. But when we look at activities like opening up our pools, when we talk about opening up summer activities for parents to bring students, to bring children to as a daycare, as a place to make sure that their children are safe, we're working through what does that look like. We're assuming, and I think rightly so, that we're going to need to keep those in somewhat smaller groups. And so the activities that we provide from a district perspective, and ensuring that we're working with the city of Peoria to make sure that that programming looks similar, and that we're following the protocols, we're following the guidelines that are set before us to make sure that our students and our families are safe. So that's the work that we're doing right now, and just really trying to find a way to make sure that we can continue to provide opportunities for the families of not only the city of Peoria, the city of Glendale, the Peoria Unified School District. And so that's where our efforts lie right now.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you for that. And Ms. Sam Martinez, I believe you have your hand raised. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. I tested it out. It works.
Perfect.
Two more comments. One, Dr. Reynolds, I wanted to follow up. What is the communication? I know that our governor announced this week that we are going to re-engage tomorrow for our businesses. And I know that our families, some of them are eager to re-engage. What has been the communication to our clubs, organizations, athletics, teachers in relation to re-engaging with our students in regards to those special programs that we offer in Peoria Unified?
Mrs. Sam Martinez, our communication right now is that we are closed through the month of May, and that we are in the process over the next 2 weeks assessing where we might be as we get to June 1. And so we're if you remember, when we first started this conversation way back, during spring break, we're tackling this in 2-week segments. And so right now we're focused on what can we do? What will our schools look like? What will, as you mentioned, clubs and activities? How will we begin to reopen? And what will that look like June 1? And so we'll be communicating out over the next few weeks on what that will look like.
Perfect. And in that process, can you include the governing board so that we can stay in the know in regards to those phase-in approaches?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And the last ask is governing board meetings. I know they've been virtual in this new environment. And as of Friday, the comment has been that we will be allowed to re-engage at the business level. But I would like us to consider that we utilize our facilities and based on feedback from the governing board and staff administration comfort level of finding a location like a school auditorium, recognizing the 6-foot distancing measures and other CDC recommendations, that we go live in one of those facilities for twofold. One, modeling what we're asking of our administrators, site administrators, staff, and community members of what best practice is. But in addition to that, we are up against financial times, and if we can identify ways, innovative ways to host our board meetings and district business at other sites, we may find it beneficial that our DAC facility be leased or utilized to generate income in the future. And this is a great opportunity to test those environments.
Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. In fact, how we conduct our governing board meetings and working with each of you has been a topic of conversation for this week, and we will continue to look at opportunities to utilize our resources so that we can start seeing each other again as quickly as we can and as safely as we can.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Ms. Sam Martinez. Dr. Reynolds, thank you very much for the update. If there are no other questions for Dr. Reynolds, we shall move along to 8.3, budget team compensation recommendations related to the fiscal year 2021 budget. Ms. Michelle Myers.
Well, thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, and Superintendent Pallas Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to summarize the fiscal year 2021 compensation and budget recommendations that have been presented to date. At the April 9th and April 23rd Governing Board meetings, I previously shared fiscal year 2021 budget factors, budget team and administration recommendations, and special considerations related to the current economic environment and impacts this could have on fiscal year 2021 funding. During the April 29th presentation, I also reviewed the Governing Board's goals and priorities related to the budget with a focus on defined compensation outcomes, instructional resources, professional development, and a multi-year plan to address facility and program utilization. Previous inputs from the Governing Board has also focused on teacher compensation levels that support recruiting and retaining qualified staff, beginning teacher salaries, and classified staff compensation. For several years, employee stakeholders have provided input to the budget process through a budget team. This year, the budget team met 7 times, and the team consisted of 32 members with certified, classified, and administrative employee representatives. We thank all of the members for their time and input this year. On April 23rd, updated budget pro forma information was shared with the Governing Board, and I will briefly summarize it again tonight. As I have shared before, annual budget considerations are a combination of internal and external fixed and variable factors. In addition to district priorities, variables include student enrollment, state funding levels, and the continuation of the district's 13% M&O override, which is a factor each year. Fiscal year 2021 base support level budget has been passed for next year by the state of Arizona, and it does include inflation funding in year 3 of the teacher 20% by 2020 pay increase. As I have previously shared, the budget reduces the accelerated district additional assistance by 50%, which reduces the statewide capital restoration by $64 million and Peoria Unified's portion by $2.8 million. Fiscal year 2021 variable expense considerations include a retirement system employer contribution increase, increased custodial service costs, and additional special education funding for community preschool, as well as continued district payment of the CTE West MEC teacher 20% by 2020 raises from M&O. As I shared on April 23rd, the fiscal year 2021 budget revenue projections do not include the $2.5 million of additional funding we received this year for ADM growth. That was in our original projection, but we've subsequently removed it, as well as a capital to M&O transfer option of $1 million to support staff compensation increases. The projected expenses do not include the optional teacher workday this year, as it will be recommended to be paid from a non-M&O source, but it does include the matching Classroom Site Fund 2.5% compensation increase for Function 2000 eligible staff for a total of $183,189 and $1.4 million to increase the minimum certified teacher salary to $40,114 a year, if approved by the Governing Board. As previously shared, the capital budget projections have been updated to reflect the $1 million transfer from district additional assistance, also known as capital, to M&O, which will leave $13,689,794 for department, school, facility, and technology needs in fiscal year 2021. In addition, included in the budget pro forma is the previously approved 2.5% benefits increase. The previously approved retention stipends will be paid from a non-M&O funding source. On April 23rd, finalized Classroom Site Fund recommendations were also presented to the Governing Board for consideration. These recommendations include a 2.5% increase for eligible certified teachers, Function 1000 staff, in Funds 11 and 13, as well as a 2.5% increase for eligible certified Function 2000 staff in an equal amount, with the increase being paid from M&O instead of Classroom Site Fund. The budget team also finalized their recommendation to not have any increases for certified or administrative performance pay for next year. On April 23rd, the budget team compensation recommendations were presented, and I will summarize them again tonight. The first option, approved by the budget team, includes the 2.5% classroom site fund increase, no change to performance pay for certified or administrative staff, the optional teacher workday being paid from a cash-controlled fund instead of M&O, with the request to make the extra day permanent next year if funding is available, and to increase the minimum certified teacher salary to $40,114, and to provide 5% compensation increases to all employee groups, with an additional $107,209 being added to the capital transfer that I previously mentioned to M&O to support the payment of the salary increase. Next slide, please. The second option approved by the budget team is the same as option 1, with the exception of the compensation increases being 5,554 across the respective employee groups, and 3 additional vacation days being provided to administrative staff in lieu of the 1% monetary increase. And the third option approved by the budget team is the same as option 1, with the exception of the compensation increases being 5,553 across the respective employee groups, and 6 additional vacation days being provided to administrative staff in lieu of the 2% monetary increase. The budget team also reviewed the current certified teacher salary schedule and the impact of the 20% by 2020 compensation increases and classroom site fund increases over the last 2 years that, in essence, effectively modified the schedule to have higher compensation bands for teachers who have been with the district for at least 2 years. The effective salary schedule movement is represented in this proposed certified teacher salary schedule that was reviewed by the budget team. If the 2.5% classroom site fund increase is approved and implemented in conjunction with the 5% final increases for the 20% by 2020, it would cost $1.4 million to bring the remaining certified teachers up to a minimum salary of $40,114, and to essentially implement this proposed new salary schedule that still has a 1.5% compensation differential between the salary bands. The fiscal year 2021 compensation increase recommendations are summarized in this slide by employee group and include the proposed base percentage increases, classroom site fund increases, and retention stipend increases, with the exception of the administrative category, as at this point it has not been determined what that percentage would be, and it has a range of either 3%, 4%, or 5%. As mentioned previously, staff will need to be in their position for more than half of the work calendar to be eligible for a raise, and embedded in the recommendation is continued professional growth for all groups at the fiscal year 2020 level. On April 9th, administrative staffing recommendations were reviewed and will be summarized again tonight. The district staffing model continues to be in place, and school-specific requests have been reviewed by administration. Administration has also reviewed department position and stipend requests. A main area of focus has been transportation, where the district has faced challenges attracting and retaining staff from a compensation perspective. The staffing modifications in transportation would be partly offset by a reduction in overtime pay based on the current staffing structure. These summarized staffing additions and changes were previously presented to the governing board on April 9th with a projected annual cost of $540,000. For your reference, I have included the multi-year compensation plan strategy slide that was reviewed in detail on April 23rd. And if we move to the next slide, I'll speak to considerations that have been mentioned on both April 9th and April 23rd. The budget team and administration have also discussed the impacts of COVID-19 and the effects on the economy if the recovery period is prolonged from a state of Arizona funding perspective, as well as the need to renew the district's current 13% M&O override in November, or the district would incur significant budget reductions the following year as the override would begin to phase out. Direction from ADE and ongoing Arizona economic updates are also being evaluated on a regular basis. This concludes the fiscal year 2021 budget considerations and compensation recommendations presentation. This agenda item can be actioned this evening, or due to the ongoing considerations that I previously mentioned, The governing board can also choose to take partial or no action on the compensation and budget recommendations and defer the pending board action to the May 28, 2020 governing board meeting if that is the board's direction. And at this time, administration is available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Stone?
Well, I would just like to say thank you to Ms. Meyer for that comprehensive update and everything, but I don't have any questions. We really can't be sure of where everything is going now, so we just have to work with what we've got. And I appreciate how hard that is for Ms. Myers and her team, and for us as well, because we don't know, what the future is going to hold. And well, we never do anyway. But thank you for all your hard work and for this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Andrea?
Yes, I would just echo Mrs. Doan's gratitude for the work of your team, Mrs. Myers, and the committee. I know this has been, it's challenging as it is in the current situation, even more so, but appreciate all the information you've laid out. I don't have any questions. I don't know that we really know more yet. So I think, we are where we are, and I think we've done the best that you can to provide those scenarios with the information that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, thank you, President Sandoval. Yeah, I know last board meeting I had asked to push it out as long as possible, which I believe will be next board meeting. I am able to, I would be more comfortable in pushing it out, but if the rest of the board has come to a decision on their feelings of how they want to vote on it, I would entertain the vote tonight. And I'd like to hear what the rest of the governing board has to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Sayar Martinez?
Thank you, President Sandoval. Ms. Myers and team, for all your time and efforts, and budget committee, taking all perspectives into consideration, especially the importance of time. So I have been wrestling with this information. I appreciate our administrators who've had the courage to speak out. I often say we ask our children to speak up when things don't sit right, or you have recommendations or solutions. And when administrators model that with the governing board, I really do appreciate and try to wrap my around what insights they're providing. And a couple of things that come to mind, and I hear my board over the years saying, let's be innovative, let's come up with solutions. And I'm going to highlight one. I'll start with one of them. Is I was leaning towards, and candidly, the 3% for administration. And I had asked for an option to consider that. And then I also recognize some of our board members had mentioned over the time, how are we incentivizing our staff to be highly performing? And so considering that last option with administrators at 3%, I wrestled with the idea of here's an opportunity where we can be innovative and model first as an administrator, a leader of our school, what high performing may look like. So I would and I'm speaking out loud, working through these thoughts, that additional 2% that our site administrators and our administrators are looking for is roughly at about $258,886, that we consider some kind of tier structure, stipend, or partnership where we recognize performance goals that we can reward those who meet those performance goals aligned to a strategic plan. And literally within 5 minutes, I brainstormed some of the feedback that was given to me, such as identifying and implementing cost-saving inefficiencies, reduction in suspensions and in absences, innovative implementation of safety measures, these are just ideas that I was coming up with. If our site administrators and district administrators want the additional 2%, well, then here's an opportunity for us to be innovative. How do we at the district office saying, okay, let's give you that additional 2%, but as a district, we need to strive for change aligned to our strategic goals. So I hear my board members asking for highly performing staff members, and I hear my site administrators asking for that 2%. This is where I landed. The other piece that you mentioned, Ms. Myers, where the need of transportation, I don't want to just say and cut 3% just to cut 2% from our administrators just because to say we did a reduction. I want it to be used. And so when you say we have to stop offering overtime, what comes to mind for me is that maybe a bus ride that our kids can't get, or that the PTSO or the Booster Club are going to have to raise more money to get our students from one event to the other because we're not able to pay for the overtime. And it's not that we're not willing, it's that we can't afford it. So will that 2% that we're cutting from our administration's base salary, can that be applied to the transportation and be enough to offset those costs? So I'll pause right there.
President Sandoval, Mrs. Sejar Martinez, members of the governing board, if I may clarify my earlier comment, we have incurred overtime because our staffing level was such that we didn't have positions in place to meet the needs of the department, and hence other individuals were provided the opportunity to work overtime to fill that need. With this new recommendation with the positions and the modifications, the staffing level will be increased to properly support the department's needs and will not require the payment of time and a half to other staff members and positions who would be filling in. So it's not that we're not offering overtime or can't afford it. We would actually see a budget savings by putting those positions in place. So I just wanted to clarify that comment that I made. Thank you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. That does make sense. So then it goes back to my original comment to be innovative. And we throw that word around a lot. And I am having a hard time. And to me, it's settling with the way we've done business as usual, 5% across the board, 3% across the board, or whatever percentage across the board. And just moving the money around. And here's our first opportunity to meet the needs or the asks of the governing board, which is let's improve highly performing and let's compensate them. And the site administrators and district administrators are asking for the 2%, and we can give that to them by help aligning their performance objectives, or what we would identify as goals, to the strategic plan. So I'm willing and ready to give the full 5%, but I also want to have innovative solutions, things like that. And so that's where I'm at. I don't want to just be a reduction just for the sake of conversation. I want us to be motivating and incentivizing and innovative as we've been talking for the past 4 years. And I will stand there.
Thank you, Ms. Sejar Martinez. Hey, quick question for you. So when you talk about, I think towards the end you made a statement you're willing to give the 5% with some innovation in and around how we're evaluating, our administrators. Which I mean, I don't disagree, man. If we need to adapt our evaluations, across the board to ensure that they're in alignment, with how the district is adapting, right, and how our strategic goals and what education looks like moving forward. That makes a lot of sense. But what I wouldn't want to do is, I don't want to use the word. Well, what I don't want to do is delay the proposal that's in front of us while we figure that evaluation model out, right? I don't disagree. I think some adaptability there. I still think we can look at other creative, innovative ways to, uplift our staff, right? Again, whether it's a blend between stipends and, increase to the base, et cetera. But I mean, for me, this is a grand way to really continue along the trajectory that we talked about earlier. When Dr. Davison talked about the 97% retention, it's I think everybody has really pulled together, and they have done a just an amazing job in adapting to distance learning, really adapting to this pandemic that we're going through. As a team, as a village, right? So I guess what I'm saying is I don't disagree. I think, we should take a look at our evaluations and see how they may need to shift based on our priorities. But for me, and I said it in our last meeting when we had this discussion about this particular line item, every one of our individuals, 4,000 plus are important, and I think we still need to uplift our staff, and I appreciate the consideration that they have them in their phased approach to continue to take a look at expanding on their compensation model. But I'm definitely willing to move forward with the first scenario, which is the 5% across the board for all of our associates. So, any other comments, board members?
Yeah, President Sandoval, this is Corey.
Okay.
I would agree with the sentiments that you and Mrs. Saya Martinez have expressed. Just looking back at the compensation study that was done, I guess it was probably a year ago or so. Let's see, in 2019. Our administrative compensation definitely varied negatively against peer districts. So, I mean, that is something to keep in mind. Up to, in some case, the range was between -2% and -13%. So we are starting out low. Now, I'm not saying that I don't agree with, incentivizing, problem solving and innovation and those kinds of things. And I think we're seeing that happening already during this time because it's just necessary. But, our admin are crucial for our district. They set the tone at the school. They support all the other positions. And I just want to, kind of put that out there to make sure that we know that, we have great people in place. They've chosen us despite differential in salaries with peer districts. So I think I agree with your sentiments, and I would approve the 5% across the board.
Thank you for that. Board members, anyone else comments?
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just I appreciate everybody's candor. This one has been a little bit difficult for me. I agree with the classified, or excuse me, the certified at 5%, with Ducey's 20 by 2020. The classified, I've always felt that they should, get more, and I'm happy with the 5% on that. And in terms of administration, I'm listening to Mrs. Martinez, and I would expect to have a high level of competency amongst all of the areas, classified, certified, and admin. I wouldn't want to take money away and have them expected to do more, because I've already expect them to do 100% as all groups. So I am not into pitting one group against the other. I think all three groups work together. So I am in favor of the 5% across the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Sandoval.
Yes, ma'am.
To follow up, there's no doubt that we value our administrators, and let me make that clear. It does take a leader to, and a sense of self-sacrifice to move what we've been doing. But I I have spent almost a little bit more of 10 years of my life in serving education, and almost 8+ years-ish in the Peoria Unified School District. And I choose Peoria Unified because of the love that we share. I've also spent almost 10 years in the private sector and learning about monetary incentives, and though teachers and educators do not want to, and it's almost like a faux pas to say that education is not a business. I've heard it in the community, the committee advisory meetings, that are third party saying you have to be mindful of the business model. So with my personal experiences and professional experiences, I do not want to diminish. If I had enough money of that 2% to allocate to our certified, we have not even discussed hazardous pay for our classified staff working on the front lines during this COVID-19. And we don't have the funding to do that. And the 2% won't even come close to funding that. But I am expecting a level of innovative work from our administrators when coming up with cost savings, or we haven't even discussed our disciplinary and our high rates of out of school suspensions, which is honestly to the point when I look at the data, disheartening of the disparities between special ed and minorities and ESL students. And we have not publicly discussed those numbers. And what I am looking for are those leaders to combat those numbers and make a better experience for our students. The expectation is everybody gets a paycheck based on the contract that they sign, and we expect 100%. But what we're looking for is innovative ideas, and how can we compensate those ideas that move our district in that direction. Not that they're worth less, it's that thank you and incentivizing, because that's what our students are taught. When they go through our system, those who are creative and innovative and go into the real world, I guarantee you that they are monetary compensated for their solution-oriented ways to decrease costs in a company. And so that's what I'm referencing, is that our administrators should be held to that expectation. And I would like to see that as 1/5 of the governing board.
Yeah, Ms. Sarah Martinez, no, thank you for that. And, you bring up, definitely a lot of good points, and I'm with you. And this, especially on the offsite suspensions. There's no doubt there's a level of inequity there, and but I do believe after multiple discussions with their SEL teams and the work that they're doing to shift that culture at each site, something that's not going to happen overnight, but I know it's a big focus of theirs. But no, it's definitely an opportunity that we have as a district, without question. But again, I think moving forward, it's probably time to take a look at our evaluations as a whole, and make sure that they're relevant to how the district has continued to adapt to the shifting needs of its student population, to the shifting needs of education, and now a pandemic, right? So yeah, I'm with you 100%. But thank you for that. So that said, board members, and Kim, Michelle, please, I guess help me wordsmith this. But what I do need is a motion to approve the budget team compensation recommendation. Do I just call out scenario 1? Is that how this should be worded?
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board. I would recommend referencing the compensation and budget recommendations as presented to include scenario number 1 for compensation increases.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
President Sandoval, and I believe Ms. Underhill and Dr. Davidson had something to say as well.
Okay, Ms. Underhill.
I'm sorry, I had raised my hand prior to speaking previously, so I'm good. Thank you.
No worries. Dr. Davidson.
President Sandoval, members of the board, just wanted to let you know that we are continuing to explore changes in the evaluation tools. We've been working through that through all the tools this spring. So you'll be seeing some refined tools, some that look very similar, but some that also have been refined to reflect the work that our staff is doing, both certified, classified, and administrative. So you'll be seeing that later here in the spring. To Ms. Seha Martinez's point regarding innovation and work and effort, especially during this time and as we move forward, I guess I would like to propose, as we move into the review of the tools, and that we really maybe focus some of that energy into the performance pay. I think salaries being one thing, I think maybe Ms. Seha Martinez, where we may get a greater traction might be in the performance pay plan that we also will need to bring back to the board. So just know I'm working on that, and you'll see that in the near future.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, sir.
President Sandoval, if I may recommend, as you referenced, that budget team option number 1 to include 5% compensation increases to all employee groups. To have that in the motion, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I need a motion to approve the budget team compensation recommendations related to FY 2021 budget as presented, to include scenario number 1, which includes a 5% across all employee groups.
I move that we approve the budget team compensation recommendations related to fiscal year 2021. As noted in budget team option 1, with a 5% increase across all salary positions. Sorry, bungled that, but.
That's okay. I'll second that. Ms. Contra, do you want to do a voice vote?
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Sandoval. I apologize. I was editing the motion. So I have a motion to approve the budget recommendations, including the compensation increases and budget team recommendation number 1, to include 5% across all employee groups for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Mrs. Pincarelli? Aye. Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Seha Martinez?
Nay.
Mrs. Underhill?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you, governing board members. Thank you, Ms. Contra. And Ms. Myers, thank you as well for the again the diligence and putting these scenarios together for us. Moving on, 8.4, Citizens Advisory Committee update and recommendation. Ms. Myers?
Well, thank you. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, and Superintendent Powles-Thompson. This evening, I'll provide a brief update on work that has taken place since the May 1st, 2020 governing board study session. Our Citizens Advisory Committee has continued to meet. We had a meeting on May 6th. And then a meeting just this evening. It was originally scheduled for yesterday, but needed to be rescheduled to tonight due to technical issues yesterday. And with that, the committee has been working diligently. There has been very good discussion and dialogue. We've shared a lot of information and data for consideration. We've provided updates along the way to the governing board. And I can share that they have made progress with recommendations, with the goal to bring several options to the governing board. They are still working on final recommendations. They did table a motion that was underway out of respect for time this evening for the governing board meeting to start. And so they will reconvene early next week, and we will be bringing forward their final recommendations for consideration and then subsequent direction to administration to prepare resolutions and agenda items for the governing board's approval related to a bond and/or override election. on November 3rd, 2020.
Governing board members, if I may, I'd like to make a recommendation in light of, this evening's Citizens Advisory Committee meeting kind of being cut short. Maybe we can have some high-level discussion, but one of the things I'd like to recommend, and I'll do it at the end of this meeting as well, is, have a special board meeting next week. As I know we're kind of beyond the 8 ball here, and the team is working hard, but I think if we allow them the time to further vet out some of their scenarios, meet again next week to talk about this line item only, and with final discussions and voting in our May 28th meeting, I think we'll be in a good position. Thoughts? Anyone?
President Sandoval.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you all like to hang out with us. I would be comfortable with that as well. We've heard robust dialogue by the committee, and we appreciate it. My only thing is they're about to immerse themselves in the conversation for an override. So I would like the board just to reiterate, every board member reiterate what they're looking for in the override, to help give some more context as they walk into that conversation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. Ms. Stone?
Well, I really don't see any need to pound the nail through the board. The committee knows what we're up against. They know that what we want is a bond or override that will pass. That's what we want, right? And so I think they should be looking for ways to reduce the impact to our citizens. It's got to be an overall tax decrease, and then it might stand a chance of passing in this current climate. So I've said that before. I don't.
Got it.
Yeah, that's all.
All right. Thank you for that. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what I had stated at the study session, is that, the override is the priority, along with the critical needs bond to include land for the high school. So that's kind of where I'm at. And considering the scenarios that we're looking at are all showing a net tax decrease, at this point, I think, we'd be in good shape to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for that. Ms. Spingarelli?
Yeah, just to say what I had said last time, that and what Mrs. Doan has just expressed, for the community to pass a bond and or override, I think it would have the best chance if we had a tax decrease. So in this climate where people are being furloughed, losing their jobs, businesses are closing, I think that the best chance would be a bond and or override combination with a tax decrease. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ms. Spingarelli. Ms. Sierra Martinez?
Thank you, President Sandoval and Governing Board, just for reiterating where you stand. For me, I think, as well as some of the committee members have highly stressed, the importance of people. We know that when we don't have brick and mortar, we need people still to engage with our students. And so when they consider the 13% or whatever percentage of the override that comes in front of the board, that they really focus on the people portion of the override. And if that means decreasing some of those other line items, that we focus on people. That's it.
Got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's there's no doubt it's a blend between the critical needs of our district, right? And that is our just cause. That's our priority. Our 37,000 plus and the 4,000 plus associates that that inspire our youth every day. And yes, a thriving school district, equates to a thriving community. So, and the community is part of our stakeholder group, without question. So with that said, I mean, in my mind, it is absolutely making sure that we address the needs of the district, knowing that there are future conversations, around the utilization study and having that flexibility, right? And then yes, understanding, our community and some of the scenarios that they're in, but I would weigh heavily on the critical needs, of our most valuable assets, which is our youth. So, again, I mean, I am absolutely for the override at the 13% and the line items that were in there, that were presented, and really looking forward to what these different bond scenarios look like. And, to Ms. Underhill's point, the meetings that we've been in, and Ms. San Martinez, I know you've attended those, and I think Ms. Pingarelli, you've attended some as well. Ms. Stone, I'm not sure if you've been able to chime in any of those, but in those meetings, they have come up with some pretty unique scenarios that address those needs. And and again, for me, a critical needs list, does include at least forward movement in building a school in the northern sector of our district, to building a high school, to be more specific. So, Ms. Martinez, thank you for bringing that up. And but yeah, it sounds like we're kind of sitting in the same position here. So thank you for that. Any other comments from Ms. Myers? Nope. Ms. Myers, thank you very much for the update. And again, all the time that you and team are taking, and Mr. Dugood, in leading those committee members to really be very intentional and mindful of, PUSD. Again, if we don't develop, these human beings in a way that when they leave our walls, that they're confident, they're adaptable, and just generally excellent citizens. We need the resources, right? And without those, we can't do that. So that said, if no other questions for Ms. Myers, we can move on.
President Sandoval,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe we have to vote. The motion reads motion to direct administration to bring forward resolutions on May 28th, 2020 for the governing board's approval to call for a bond and/or M&O override election on November 3rd based on one or all of the Citizens Advisory Committee recommendations. This is listed as an action item.
Okay, because on my screen, I have it listed as all three: action, discussion, information. I mean, do we have to have the opportunity to choose one of those? Or, I mean, I'm fine with motioning that because, that is the task, right? So, yeah, absolutely. So I do need a motion. Thank you for that, by the way, Kim. I do need a motion to direct administration to bring forward resolutions on May 28th, 2020 for governing board approval to call for a bond and/or M&O override election on November 3rd based on one or all of the Citizens Advisory Committee's recommendations.
So, President Sandoval, you can also change that motion to move to table the item.
For due to kind of obviously the committee meeting, was incomplete. They couldn't finish the discussion. I guess. Well, let me ask you this: we table it because what I'd like to do, in light of the committee meeting kind of being cut short today, is absolutely recommend we have another board meeting next week to discuss their final scenarios, right? By tabling this today, we bring back the same line item in that meeting, and then just allow that to be a more complete discussion. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I gotcha. So with that said, and in light of the fact that the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting unfortunately was cut short, I would like to move that we table this line item for a subsequent board meeting.
Thank you, President Sandoval. I'm sorry, Mrs. Underhill had her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Ms. Underhill, I apologize.
No, it's fine. I was just wondering if we are to schedule a special board meeting next week and we have the recommendations from the committee at that time, are we able to vote or do we have to wait until the 28th?
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, in order to vote and call for the election, you would also need to have the associated resolutions, the legal documents to do that. And we would recommend that those documents be prepared based on the input at the special meeting, or if it could have been provided this evening, so those resolutions would be approved as part of the vote. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Myers. And Ms. Underhill, thank you for the question. So with that said, I move that we table 8.4 Citizens Advisory Committee updates and recommendations for a subsequent board meeting.
Second.
When I call your name, please cast your vote. Mrs. Pingarelli?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Aye.
Mrs. Underhill?
Aye.
Motion to table this item has passed 5-0.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ms. Contra. Moving on to Section 9, Informational Reports. 9.1, District Budget Report for the month of March 2020. These can be found on our websites. 9.2, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report. Also can be found on our websites. 9.3, Report on Upcoming Meetings and Events. Ms. Ari, anything to report on there?
Good evening, President Sandoval. Just one update for our governing board members. We are looking forward to bringing you an updated copy of the promotion schedules that our elementary schools are putting together. And so we know you have been anxiously awaiting those and to hear what our remaining schools are doing to celebrate our 8th graders. We'll provide that to you in tomorrow's report.
Perfect. Thank you for that. 9.4, Legislative Updates. Ms. Myers?
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Mrs. Pallas-Thompson. I do not have an update this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Section 10, Other Business. 10.1, does any board member, would any board member like to readdress agenda items? Ms. Stone?
No, thank you.
All right. Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
All right. Ms. Pingarelli?
No.
Okay. Ms. Ceja Martinez?
Not as this time, thank you.
All right, thank you. And neither do I. 10.2, Draft Agenda for the May 28th, 2020 regular board meeting. And I know we have a meeting tomorrow to get this completed for that meeting.
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
on this board meeting, my only ask is that we really try to configure a space at an auditorium where we can be live in person.
Okay. Duly noted. Yeah, we'll see what we can do to accommodate that without compromising anyone's health and wellness. But we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
President Sandoval, excuse me. I'm sorry, I will note that in the following future agenda item request.
Perfect. Thank you. And moving on to 10.3, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Ms. Doan.
I don't have any agenda item, but I would like to say I don't want to meet in some random auditorium. It's difficult for me with my children and my grandchild, and I am opposed to having meetings scattered around. So I just want to add that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that we, thank you for that. Absolutely. We'll,
I do want to say I would love to get back face to face, though. I'm ready for that.
Yeah, agreed. We'll make sure that obviously we consider your scenario, and if it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, team seems to be working.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Underhill.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pingrelli.
Nothing for this evening. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. A.R. Martinez.
The only thing, and I saw it, but I don't remember. Do we have discipline on there? On that list?
I think so. And tell you what, do you want to go ahead and request it, and we'll make sure if it's not that it gets put on there.
Okay, so I would like to request a study session on discipline trends related to out-of-school suspension and demographics of our students and policy.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. I do believe that item is on there, but if not, I will make sure it appears.
Thank you, Kim. For me, I don't have an item for our future governing board meeting, but board members, I just want to set the expectation that we will look at some days and times for a special board meeting for next week to go over the bond and override discussion. So I appreciate in advance your flexibility there. All right, no other items. Moving along to 11.1. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting at 9:27.
Second. Ms. Contra, you want to lead us in a voice vote?
You bet. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Pingarelli.
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval.
Aye.
Mrs. Doan.
Bye.
Mrs. Sehar Martinez.
Aye.
Mrs. Underhill.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned at 9:27.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for all your time, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.